Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Breakfast with Bobbi show. I'm flying solo today. Christina is out. So today we're going to be talking about something really subtle, very deeply impactful, cultural and spiritual gaslighting. The moments when our experiences, our beliefs, and our inner knowings are questioned, maximized, minimized, the rewritten of others, and even the system we are part of. The conversation isn't about blame. It's about clarity, awareness, and reclaiming trust in ourselves. So let's take a breath and step into it together. Today we have our same old guest, my favorite guest, my teacher, my mentor. His name is Markus Kasunich, and you all know his history. He's a fabulous coach and mentor, has written books, authored, does a lot of speaking engagements. He was just here in Wisconsin. So welcome, Markus Kasunich.
Thank you, Bobbi. Nice to be here.
So you and I have about this gaslighting thing for a while. And since I feel like I'm echoing, so I'm going to let you take the floor.
Okay, well, let's talk about this whole idea of gaslighting. I mean, we've talked about this, we've dialogued about it, we've had conversations about it. To me, this is a deeply impactful thing because this is the system that we're living in right now, and it's ubiquitous. I mean, it's across the board in every fabric of our reality. We're dealing with this concept. I think we use the word, we throw it around a lot, but let's talk about where it comes from, because I don't think a lot of people know the origin of the word and some of the historical references of it. The term gaslighting it's from a 1944 film called Gaslight. And this term it comes from the storyline where the husband of the movie, the lights in the home are gas. In 1944, they had gas lighting in the house. And he would start turning down all of the gas lighting in the house. And then the wife would notice in the movie, and he would say, I don't know what's going on. Nothing's changed. Everything's the same. So over time, he slowly manipulates the character, slowly manipulates her into doubting her own perception and her own sanity. So that was the first time that term was from, it's referring to the experience of manipulation from that film in 1944. And then it really became popular in basically from 1970s to the 2000s, it started to become a thing. So that's where the term comes from, that we use the term gaslighting. Well, it's referencing the act of manipulation from that specific movie. And then, there's a couple references that are really powerful. I don't know if you ever read this book, but, the book 1984 by George Orwell.
Yeah.
There's a lot, basically it's a warning. He wrote that book in 1949, which would have been, 5 years after this movie. And he talks about doublespeak and doublethink. And in the book, doublespeak is the manipulation of language where you say one thing and it leads to a way of thinking where you're basically creating cognitive dissonance. And it's holding two contradictory terms or two truths at the same time until that becomes so familiar, it becomes normalized. And then it creates the schism inside the consciousness. So there's doubt, there's inner conflict, and of course there's the deregulation of your nervous system. So the idea of doublespeak is when language deliberately obscures, disguises, and distorts meaning to create a specific idea or narrative. And so that's kind of some of the references. But when all of that is referencing something way worse, if you want to really think about it, the gaslighting movie, that was 1944, George Orwell was 1949. But where this really starts is from this book called Mein Kampf, which is Hitler's book. This is where it all starts, right? Hitler in 1925, when he was imprisoned for attempting a coup in Germany, a failed coup, and he went into prison. And in prison in 1925 and 1926, he wrote this book, which was basically an autobiography about who he was, a political ideology, and a propaganda strategy. So our entire playbook of propaganda that's being used today comes from Hitler's book that he wrote, the Nazi treatise on manipulation and propaganda. And that's the playbook that we're all living in right now, that almost all governments have kind of internalized. And he had three big ideas in that book, really, really important ones. One, he talked about how propaganda is a tool for control. And he said, propaganda should be simple, it should be emotional, it should be repetitive, and it should be targeted to the masses, not to the intellectuals. So we're targeting to the common man propaganda. And the message should be reduced to very, very simple points that are repeated constantly till it becomes part of the way you think, right? And so the other thing he talked about, and again, this is mind-blowing because it's exactly what we're seeing in our world. The other thing he talked about was the big lie concept. And in the big lie concept, he says, listen, create a lie that is so unbelievable that it's like so weird and insane that it's almost unbelievable to be believed, and people are more likely to accept this massive falsehood rather than a small lie. So make the lie as big and as ugly and as weird and as intense as powerful, like basically dramatize it, right? And then the last thing he talked about intensely was about controlling personal identity and narrative. So it's about recreating the way we view ourselves and how we hold ourselves, which is personal identity, and then control all the narratives as much as possible to manipulate this propaganda that goes out all the time. And so he wanted to control cultural narratives and historical narratives, which means basically who controls history controls the present, and who controls the present controls history and the future. So if you think about this, that's from 1925. 1925 is kind of the origin where governments started playing with this whole propaganda thing, and it's become so sophisticated now in our culture that we're dealing with it in a systemic way, that basically all layers of our culture are wired in to this playbook that was created by the Nazi leader. All of the leaders in the world are using this, by the way. Yeah. So this is the context of what we're living in, right? This is the context of it, which is intense and mind-boggling, because Orwell was trying to warn. It was a warning. 1984 was a warning about what would happen if this became prevalent. And if anyone hadn't read the book 1984, in 1949, he was projecting what 1984 would look like. That's why the title's called 1984. It's a science fiction dystopian future, which we're now living in. And so you think about all these things, the film was 1944 was kind of the psychological manipulation. Orwell was warning us in 1949 about what was happening from the book Mein Kampf that Hitler wrote while being incarcerated after trying to do a coup, which skyrocketed Hitler into public eye, which then started his whole Nazi campaign. So this is where gaslighting starts. That's the origin of it, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of mind-boggling.
It's going on everywhere.
It's going on everywhere. And so now the problem is that we're living in this reality where we're basically kind of living in this constant propaganda machine that's going on all the time. And that's the context of how we view our reality, how we view ourselves, and how we view our spiritual development. I mean, think about some of the words we use. Like this is very systemic. Like, think of the words, like when we use the word collateral damage, right? That means civilian deaths. This is how we've translated words into things like downsizing. When we talk about downsizing, you're getting fired. That's what downsizing means. But you see the words get softened and it creates this different psychological impact, right? Data collection means we're tracking your behavior online. So we turn it into data collection. Or user engagement. That means you're hooked and addicted to a certain thing, or even common terms like he passed away. That means died. So we've changed our languaging has softened things to have a different psychological impact and to change things around. And Orwell talked about this as doublethink. Like in the book, he talked about the Ministry of Peace was about war. And so we're in this thing where we're constantly creating this schism in our consciousness, this cognitive dissonance. And that is basically what's being used as our way of functioning. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I know what's going on, I can handle it. But the truth is, you're not going to beat an algorithm that's now wired into a system that's been going on since 1925. It's been studied, it's been practiced, and what Hitler was referring to was neural programming. He was referring to neural linguistic programming, because if you repeat propaganda enough, you're repeating neural pathways. If you're talking about something that's huge that creates this schism in your consciousness, cognitive dissonance, and holding two conflicting ideas at the same time, that creates a schism which deregulates your nervous system, which makes it easier for you to be manipulated. So we're living, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere, and it is powerful. It's powerful because it works. It's not because, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It doesn't matter how sophisticated you are. It doesn't even matter how aware you are. If you're engaging in this system and you're engaging with this, you're engaging with something that is designed strategically to reprogram your neural network with the message that they want you to learn. That's intense.
It's all about social fear.
It is about social fear, right? It's about creating a deregulated culture so that whatever propaganda gets put in, we buy it and then we kind of align to it. Now, the thing is
what makes people really angry is they know differently.
It is, that's the thing. It generates a huge amount of anger, but the thing is, it doesn't even matter how, people are like, Markus, this sounds like doom and gloom. Like, what's our situation? If this is the way it is, like, are you telling me we don't have a recourse? Well, part of the recourse is understanding that it's going on. Like, to understand that almost anything that we engage with is part of this, and it's gotten far more sophisticated, right? So, like, if you look at what it does, it's one of the things we see a lot in the political spectrum is the denying of events. Things happen, and then it just everyone's denying that it actually happened. And then you see this like rewriting of reality. We're going to deny what happens, and then we're going to write the story that we want you to know, and then we're going to replay the story through all the news networks, through everything. And then it undermines trust and confidence. And the whole point of this is to create doubt. It's about controlling and regulating the narrative till we get to a place where we're deregulated internally and we're frustrated, and we're now, instead of functioning from our space of awareness, we're functioning from reaction, fight, flight, or fear in our reptilian brain. And as long as we can keep the culture and keep most people in that state, then they're easily manipulated. And then whatever propaganda is put in gets logged into the neural network, and it's basically reprogramming. We're getting conditioned and reprogrammed with almost every single thing that we see. Now, I talk about this in my book too, but I talk about it from the terms of control. For me, this is a shadow element of the psychology. We're dealing with the controlling adult, the inner controlling adult, which is basically a shadow element, and this is all manipulation. So we're living in an age of overt manipulation that, this has been going on forever, right? If you think about the governments in terms of how they talked about the natives many, many moons ago, I'm native, so the native population talks about, well, the government is here to help you. We're going to help you. We're going to be friends with you. And now then they put them on reservations and they systemically attempt to genocide. So, this is not new. It's just now more overt and it's now wired into the systems of social media in such a way that it's everywhere. When you turn on social media, you're dealing it, right? And I just saw somebody put, when you don't believe in something, you won't fall for anything. Well, that's true to a certain degree, but unfortunately, the programming is always happening. So even though we know we're being programmed, it is still happening, right? Because it's just the nature of all the systems. Think about it. There are 6 major companies that run all the news systems in the United States media, right? So, and those, and 2 of those companies are entertainment companies. So when you look at that, we're dealing with this crazy situation where we're living in a constant state, which is basically what Orwell predicted about 1984, of a constant programming so that we become docile, programmed individuals, and we're told how to think, what to think, the way to think, what to watch, how to watch, and the way to think about what we watch. That's the context of what we're dealing with in our modern world if we're engaging with media or social media on almost every platform, right? That is, I understand it sounds very doom and gloom, but like this individual who just kind of got on and said, if you can understand that this is going on, there are things we can do to prevent or at least minimize the propaganda, right? So in order to understand that, you also understand how the neural network works. Your programming works through repetition and emotional conviction. The more you repeat something in your consciousness, the more those pathways create realities that are based on that. And they know this. They know that this is going on, right? So, and then the more you emotionally get charged on that and get involved in it, the more that affects and builds the pathways in a stronger way. So it's another way of saying whatever you put your attention on, you create. And most people are focusing on what they do not want, because the whole point of that is to create this emotional, intense thing so that we get activated and we get involved and engaged in the dialogue. So that is what the context of our reality right now. Unfortunately, I'd like to say it's not. I'd like to say, hey, there's a better way to deal with it, but this is what we're dealing with, right?
It's a sad situation.
It's a sad situation.
Indeed.
Hey, Bobbi. Hey, Bobbi.
Would you
take a private message?
if you put your headphones
on
or turn the volume down,
it didn't help.
How's this?
it's you.
It's you.
Yeah, we're trying to
We're
fix
trying
it,
to
and
fix
thank
it.
you for telling
Thank
us
you
that.
for telling us that.
Or it may be
Or
Marcus
it may be Marcus
or the combination.
or the combination.
All right, what am I trying to do here?
Turn your volume down.
Turn your volume down a little bit.
My computer?
Yeah, I was
I was
How's that?
troubleshooting it, and this is what it said. Is that better,
Is that better?
Bobby?
It just echoes a little less.
I
Oh,
can't hear
okay.
Bobby at all now.
That's better then. Okay, let's go with that.
how's this?
Yes.
Better?
Hello.
Yes. Yes. There we go.
Look at us go.
Okay.
Okay.
How's that? Does that sound better?
I can talk now.
Okay, good.
Well,
All
we're
right.
doing the best we can here. I just think it's more important for the viewers to hear what you have to say rather than for me to interrupt and so I'm just going to let you talk.
Okay. Is your audio working again now or no? Are we still going?
We are.
Okay, good. All right.
We are still live.
So it's a lot. This is the nature of the reality we're living in. And again, the first part of this is understanding it's happening. It's been happening for, quite a while. It's become very sophisticated at this point. And every algorithm in social media is based on this, by the way, right? What you put your attention on, you get more of. You put your attention, and they don't care, because what is the main commodity that allows this to continue is your attention. If they need 3 things to make this work, right? 3 things. They need your attention. They need you to have a deregulated nervous system, because when you're in that cognitive dissonance, you're easily manipulated. And then they need you to stay engaged. So those are the things. So your attention is an intense commodity for this process. attention, and so if you're engaged, you're in the game. And a lot of people say, I'm in the game, but I know I'm in the game and therefore I can manipulate it. You cannot change and you cannot affect, and you don't have the ability to fight against a systematic algorithm that's in basically every aspect of our reality. And then we have AI on top of that now. This is the problem, is that we have now this AI system, and this has taken it to another level, because now we don't know what's real, right? You can go on social media and 60 to 70% of what you're seeing is AI. My big thing with the AI thing is, why is it not a law that if something is designed by AI, that there should be some kind of badge or mark or notification that you're watching something that's not real, right? But that's not part of it. Notice that that's not part of it when people do AI stuff. They do, and then it's described as entertainment. Like they'll do satirical kind of skits, and they'll recreate trailers from movies. Like they do all this stuff, and you don't know what's real and what's not. And this is designed because then you're desensitized to everything that's going on. So no matter what, again, it creates doubt and it creates confusion, and it's a form of manipulation. So if we don't know what's real, we know that most of the systems that are producing our content are created by a propaganda machine, and that we're living in a systemic thing where we're being programmed. What do we do? How do we deal with that? And how does that affect us spiritually as beings? Because what they do is they start wiring in the idea of how this affects and gets engaged with the spiritual world and your spiritual journey, because it becomes this situation where what's normal, culture sets what's normal, and then that can conflict against your personal internal experience of what's going on. And then it redefines your inner voice about how you engage with yourself. So, but when we get all these things going on at once, this affects the way we view ourselves. And what happens is we stop trusting our own inner knowing. That's what comes down to it. That's the spiritual implications of this, right? Which is why I'm so adamant with people about deeply know how you feel, trust what your feelings are and your experiences internally. And on top of that, be very, very clear about what you know as being true. Because if you don't know how you feel, then you don't know what's real for you. Because at the end of the day, the only real thing that we're dealing with is self. So it does project an opportunity for individuals to go inward, because if you can't trust the outer reality and everything that's being projected at you, then your only choice of is connection and knowledge and knowing is to go deeper inside. So a lot of spiritualists would argue that this is, in terms of the Kali Luga, this is our powerful way of driving us inward to learn about who we are, because we can't trust our outer world, right? So this is kind of what we're dealing with in terms of our internal experience of self, and it can be a very powerful tool. So these are the things we're dealing with. Cultural gaslighting sets the stage, and it defines the realities and norms, and then spiritual gaslighting deepens it so you feel questionable about your own truth. So, again, this is part of the whole debate about church and state, too. The reason you wanted to separate church and state is so this propaganda machine that's going on doesn't bleed into the spiritual and religious worlds. But this has already happened. Church and state are already put together. So this is affecting us. We're getting it bombarded on every level of our being. This makes us have to be extremely disciplined and diligent and discerning about what we're engaging with in the outer world, and start to really trust self in a way that we never have before, right? Because all of our social, look at, when you start looking at the Epstein list and things that are unraveling, who can you trust? So it puts our culture in a very interesting dynamic. And I would say that this is probably the most extreme version of this gaslighting that we're experiencing on a regular level. Is the most extreme version that we've ever seen in our lifetimes, and probably in the history of the world. Nothing has been quite this systemic.
Much worse.
No, I don't know how worse it can get. So that creates this huge thing. Like, people are like, okay, so you feel what do I do? Like, how do I handle this? How do I engage with this? If the system is every system around me is designed to program me in a particular way, what are the things I need to do as an individual once I understand that this is going on? And this has been going on since 1925, right? Which you think about how long that is. We're talking hundreds of years, almost 100 years, right? So if this has been going, they got it refined. The governments have it refined. The systems of power have it refined. How do we deal with this as beings? I mean, that affects the way we view ourselves. That affects our language. We're programmed for youth, for education system. We're programmed to thinking normal is a particular way. How do we now deal with this as this is playing itself out internally as beings? And how do we navigate this? So the first thing I'd say is the only way to win this game is not to play. Now, someone said to me, well, how does that happen? Like, what do you mean? How do we not play? Remember, your attention is the commodity. So where you put your attention is very, very important. So, and people said, well, why? Why is not playing the way it engages? Because you have to remember that the way our neural network works, the way our inner programming works, the network of our belief systems works, it's done through agitation, it's done through engagement, it's done through repetition, it's done through emotional conviction, and as that's how you repeat and program. So to prune neural pathways, so that we don't go down neural pathways, it's not through engaging in a battle with saying it's wrong, because you're putting your attention and agitation on the very thing you do not want, which creates pathways towards it in your neural network. How we prune our neural pathways that we don't want is we pull our attention from those pathways. So the more you pull your attention away from what you do not want and focus what you do want, you are creating new pathways towards probabilities for the future, the way you view the reality. So think of it like it's a highway that you don't want. It's an obsolete highway, right? Highways get put out of commission in the United States when they're not used anymore. They become obsolete when they're no longer relevant and they're no longer attention. People aren't driving on them. So as long as we keep engaging with the system the way we're engaging with it and putting our attention on it, we're in the game. So the idea is to get out of the game. So what you place your focus on, you begin to notice more. You amplify, you attract, and you create. That's how you manifest reality. So the key here is put your attention on what you want and do not fight the system. Remove attention, because the attention is commodity. So as long as you start removing your attention from what you don't want to put your attention on, you're not feeding the beast. You're not feeding the machine. So when I say the only way to win is not play the game, I'm like, if you're playing the game, because some people say, well, I'm going to fight the man, I'm going to fight the system. If you're fighting the system and you're engaged in conflict, you're playing. So put your attention on what you want. How many people do I know that spend most of their time talking about what they do not want and what doesn't work for them? Every time you do that, you're building your reality that way. So whatever you do not want to engage with the system in battle, because then you're playing. So the only way to win is to withdraw your attention and put your attention where you actually want it, not where you don't want it, right? And that's the key thing in terms of social media. Your attention is the commodity for social media. Your attention is if your attention is not there, propaganda doesn't work. Period. Right?
You need an audience.
Yeah. But here's the thing, like someone said to me, well, how do you do this how do you like this? You're telling me you want me to go escape. And I'm like, I'm not talking about escapism here, because escapism is denial of what's going on and you're running from something. And then what you resist persists and intensifies because you're putting your attention. There's an emotional charge about escapism. No, when you escape, you're withdrawing out of fear, denial, distraction. You just want to be distracted. You don't want to think about it. I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about you need to stay available and you need to be aware of what's happening without escapism. And someone says, a lot of people say, but I don't want to be affected. And I'm like, here's the deal. if you can't be fully available to what's going on in the world and be unaffected at the same time, you are going to be affected. You have to be affected. It's part of the deal. It's part of feeling, right? Because if you become so desensitized, you can't tune into what's going on. So you have to stay open, you have to be aware, you have to be present, but some impact is going to be inevitable in your consciousness. It happens. And spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, you are going to feel the effects of watching what we're seeing. And what I've seen and what I've experienced over the last couple of months significantly with a lot of clients is people saying, I feel this intense sense of heartbreak watching what's going on in the world. I don't want to feel that. I'd rather go do something to soothe. And I keep inviting everybody, let your heart break. Feel the heartbreak of being available to what's going on, not engaging with it, but feeling of being available to the mess that we're getting created now. And someone would say, well, why do you want that to happen? You want me to feel miserable and broken? And I'm like, okay, from a spiritual perspective, you want to think about this. First of all, your heart breaks. What happens when your heart breaks energetically? When your heart breaks energetically, your heart is cracking open and expanding. Your consciousness is expanding. And if you think about this from an energetic perspective, if you think of it from an esoteric perspective, the heart chakra balances the higher energies and the lower energies. It's the bridge between the lower human energies, instinctual energies, and the higher divine energies. So when we become desensitized and we shut down, that bridge gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So when your heart breaks, it's literally cracking open and making the bridge have more lanes, if you think of it like a highway. So it allows more power, more energy, more consciousness, more life force to flow through you. So this, in some ways, is a spiritual design. We can use this if we allow our hearts to break and feel that and be available to that. We are opening up the pathway to become more aligned energetically to our own consciousness. That's what this is doing. But it's only if we allow ourselves to not play, but to be available to what's going on and feel what's happening, which is a very discerning dance. Most people are like, most people are staying into the space where they want to escape and they want to soothe and they want to do stuff so they don't have to think about it. They want to be entertained. They want to be soothed. That's a lot of what spirituality has become because of the context of what we're dealing with in our reality. So you want your heart to break. You don't want to give your attention to the point where you're engaging from a place of fear, from a place of the reptilian brain. You want to have a regulated system, but you want to feel it. And you want to allow yourself to break open, because that breaking open will open you to a higher consciousness. So that's one piece of how to handle this. So you will be affected. You have to allow yourself to be affected, but you got to stay present in that system and I'm telling you, it's not easy. Like everyone else, I would love to just soothe. And we have a lot of systems in our social reality which allow us to soothe: drugs, alcohol, entertainment, pornography, video games, sports. You name it. There's more soothing mechanisms than there are being available. So you want to not give your attention to the game. You still want to know what's going on and be available, stay connected and regulated, but allow yourself to feel everything that's going on and not react, which requires a mature consciousness. It requires us to be connected to self. It requires us to know how we feel. And that's tricky. I mean, think about this. We do this in relationships, right? A lot of people, what are people trying to avoid when they enter relationships? They're trying to avoid a broken heart. I don't want to have my heart broken by my partner. But you have to allow that, because ironically, it's one of the most powerful ways to create expansion spiritually. So a broken heart allows you to learn about yourself, your consciousness, your experience, and then it opens you up to do different things in your relationships with people and in your engagement with the reality that you're in. And you won't, unfortunately, for the human condition, we don't technically change until we're in a lot of pain. I mean, pain is part of the growthing process. It's part of evolution.
We don't change unless it's uncomfortable.
So think about that on a human level, how uncomfortable one person has to get to make a change. And like, think about your own life. Now think of that on a societal level. How uncomfortable does society have to get in order to be a shift in consciousness on a collective level? It's huge. So one thing is attention. You have to really be clear that they're going after your attention. Your attention is the commodity. And everything is designed that way. The other thing is that you want to keep yourself engaged and feel what's going on. But in order to do that, you have to be regulated. Your nervous system has to be regulated, right? So what I mean by regulated is staying out of fight, flight, or freeze. Because that's where cognitive dissonance allows us to be most manipulated. So when you stay out of fight, flight, or freeze, that means you're aligned to how you feel. You're connected to what serves and sources you as a being. You're in balance in your own regulated state internally. You're in balance mentally. You're in balance emotionally, which are practices that are not enforced in society. Most of society is about entertainment and distraction. So these are spiritual tools to become connected to who you are. The more connected you are, the more regulated you are, the more aware you are of your emotional experiences, the more you are about your own identity, the more you've explored your own who you are and what makes you tick, the less manipulating it will be to access that nervous system and get you to a place where you're thrown off balance, right? So your attention is key. Don't give it to them. Be very clear about where you put it, how you're creating your reality, what you do, what you put your attention on. Because if you're playing the game, you're involved. You want to feel everything. You want to break. It's okay to break. It's part of the process. It's going to evolve you. And you want to stay regulated in that process in terms of your emotional, mental, energetic, and spiritual states, because those are the things that are going to keep you grounded and connected. One of the most powerful ways to do that is a simple ways to be in nature. The more you can be in nature, the more you can be connected to the natural rhythms of the universe, the organic functioning, the less likely you are to be pulled into the technology. Because if you think about most of what's programming us, it all lives outside of nature. When you're aligned to nature and you're aligned, connected, getting off your screens, you're taking walks, you're engaged in the park, you're in the ocean, you're walking in the desert, you're sitting in the forest, you're engaged in something that is real. You're engaged in something that we're an extension of that. So you're putting yourself back to the connection to what is. So being in nature is very powerful. So people use the term grounded. Being grounded means being connected to the earth. Because everything that we're experiencing in society is disconnecting us from the earth. So your attention is key. The only way to win is not play. Feel everything that's going on, but be regulated in the process of that. And do practices and things spiritually which keep you regulated. And one of those things is to stay very tuned into the natural phenomenon, the organic functioning of what's going on, because that's the realest thing in the physical world that we have that models what is natural, what is organic, and what is the way life functions. So those things are very powerful tools. And they're not easy because the addictive quality of this whole game is huge. Right? I mean, it's basically one giant propaganda addiction machine.
It is the truth. It is the truth.
So the other thing is understand that is the only way they can control or manipulate you in propaganda is when you're in cognitive dissonance, when you're functioning in this unregulated state, when you're affected in fear, when you're living in the reptilian brain as opposed to being connected to self. So that's powerful. So a lot of people say to me, well, I mean, what are you saying? You're basically, the words you're using is like you're saying stay out of it, but you want me to be in it. You want me to be out of it. You want me to feel it, but you don't want me to participate. What do you call that? And I mean, in the spiritual context, that's called neutrality, right? The highest state of expansion is neutrality, meaning you're observing everything. It's affecting you, but you're not reacting. So a lot of people think when you're in neutral state that you don't feel anything when you're in neutral. when you're in this objective state. That's not true. When you're in a neutral state of consciousness, you're actually more feeling deeply, more accessible to everything. It's just that you're not reacting to it. And the only way you're not reacting to it is because you understand your own identity, you understand your own programming, you understand what makes you tick and what activates you. And that's, again, a thing it's not taught in our society. We're not taught to know selves and understand our own conditioning. So it makes it even easier for us to be thrown off balance. So when it comes down to this, you want to be able to understand neutrality doesn't mean being disassociated. It doesn't mean being shut down. It doesn't mean being unaffected. It means you are affected, but you choose not to react, and you choose to respond, the ability to respond in a way that's loving, mature, expansive, and connected for you. So those are things you can think about. And the last thing I would say, which I think is one of the most powerful, is consciously give yourself permission to recreate yourself all the time. Remember, your identity is assigned. It was programmed. Who we are, and we're constantly getting programmed. So you got to give yourself permission to recreate who you are, because that creates neuroplasticity, that creates flexibility, that creates you to have room to be flexible, be curious, to be open, to be receptive to more, other, and beyond, and to be willing to redefine everything about the way you view things when you get new information. A lot of people, when they get new information, they don't want to change because their internal system, it's like, I don't want to change, I don't want to get uncomfortable, I don't want to challenge my own status quo. But challenging your own status quo consciously and constantly is extremely powerful. And remember, the system's designed for you not to do that. So if you're not playing, you're not giving your attention, you're focusing on what you want, not what you do not want, you're pruning neural pathways that you don't want to have access to, you're building towards your reality, towards what you want, you're staying connected and feeling, so you're available to what's happening, but you're not allowing yourself to get pulled into the game, which means you're going to break and you're going to open and you're going to expand, which is going to affect you and move you and open you up spiritually. And then you're staying in this neutral place where you allow yourself to be observing everything that's happening, to be affected by it, but not react to it, not be in a state of reaction, and then constantly staying in that place of redefining, recreating, learning. Be curious, not judgmental. That's the expression a lot of it people use. Putting all those things together, that's the only way we have. And then, of course, all the tools you have to regulate. Right? Spiritually, meditation, knowing self, experiences, information, and of course, being in nature. When you put all those things together, that's becoming a very conscious human being. You are consciously being a creator of your own reality. You're engaging the experience on your terms, not on what's being sent or programmed or dialed into your consciousness. You become your own programmer, instead of allowing the system to program you. And somewhat, again, a lot of people say it sounds really intense and it sounds like it's a lot of work. Well, what's the alternative? The alternative is, you allow yourself to be basically tuned, programmed, created, and identified into a particular form, which is used by the powers that be for your attention is used in multiple ways. So I say there are no other alternatives except to know self and to be that connected. That's the ideal of how we battle this machine. And the thing is, it's forcing us to do that. Because if we can't trust anything in the outer world, if it's all one giant propaganda machine, with the exception of independent things like shows like this that are opening people up, then the whole system is designed to make you go inward, to make you learn. That's why, in spiritual teachings, we're in this state called the Kali Yuga, which in the Kali Yuga, it's the darkest part of the human condition, but it's also one of the places where you can achieve the highest spiritual growth because you're forced to go inward in a way that you never were before. So a lot of people, it's not just about escape. It's not just about going and doing fun things, because you still have to be aware and conscious and connected. It's about staying regulated. And if you're choosing to go do fun things, if you're choosing to do things which, amplify the radiant child in you, creativity, experience, play, Do it with consciousness, do it with awareness. Don't do it from a form of escape, because if you're escaping, you're not really being connected or aware of what's going on. And there is a level of disassociation and a level of desensitization. We don't want that either. So the game here is take control of your own inner experience, your attention, your consciousness, your state. It's going to happen anyways, because the only way out of the game is not playing, right? And that's how you effectively leave the matrix. Like, people are always like, I want to leave the matrix. Well, you're never going to leave the relative reality. It's part of our consciousness, but you can leave your participation at the door and participate into something else, which is actually serving you in a very powerful way. So the first part of it is information, is to understand it's going on. Once you understand it's going on, then you got to figure out how you want to play. And the best way to win is not play the game that's being presented to you. Play on your terms. So basically, I'm inviting people to take control and be more empowered to play the game of life on their terms. And by doing that, you have to kind of redefine your relationship to self. It's the only way out. You know? You can be of the world, but not be affected by it, or not be actually, programmed by it. Still affected, and you allow the world to actually move you deeper into states of connection with self. Again, I've said this a gazillion times, and I'll say it till I'm probably, till I'm not in a body, and maybe afterwards, that this is the only game in town, is learning and developing a deeper sense of connection to self. That is the only game in town. You have to get to decide how the context of you play that. It's happening anyways. I just say to people, why not play it consciously rather than playing it unconsciously? And the thing is, in our world, we're now waking up to this. This is now changing. This is the spiritual evolution that we're engaged with. And it's powerful.
I think that a lot of the people that are not awake don't know how to do that. They don't know how to connect to themselves.
That's why the easiest way is to start pulling attention and putting... The earth is a very powerful way for people who are unconscious to get connected, because, we've been pulled out of organic functioning for so long in our culture.
Right.
I mean, people don't even, some people don't even know where their food comes from.
It's true. It's true.
Right? So I say the first part is make people aware that it's going on, and don't fool yourself into thinking you can beat the system, because it's being refined for 100 years. It's super sophisticated at this point. The second thing is, once you understand that what we're living in, then you get to make conscious choices about what you really want versus what the system tells you want. Between AI and advertising and social media, we are engaged in our screens like we're addicted. I mean, have you ever seen that movie that one called Wall-E? It was an animated movie. Have you ever seen that?
Is that the guy with the bubble?
About a robot, and it's kind of a horror movie, actually, because at the end you see human beings, and they're like these blobs that are on these floating things that are just engaged in a screen, and they've lost all of their empowered kind of consciousness. And the robot is actually more empowered than the human beings. It's kind of an intense animation, but the funny thing about it is it's not that far from the truth. Like, what we're seeing in our reality are versions of people being so engaged in the system where we walk around with our phones. Like, I went to a restaurant the other day, and I was there with my wife, and we're sitting there and we're watching, and I'm like, 80% of the restaurant is on their phones. Yeah. And you're with people on screens. So again, see how much of our attention is sucked into the game. And how many people now work on screens, me included. Right?
Right. Every day we are just sucked into whatever's happening. And if we don't take the courage to get to know ourselves more and go inward, and spend a lot more time with nature, because that's where the good energy comes from. We don't know really what's going on with all the AI. Some people are easily baffled by that. It's a sad situation. And it's been going on, like you said, it's been going on for years. And just a couple of weeks ago, there was a national television show on that cited there is a country out there that talks to their students, the little kids, the 5 to 10-year-olds, and tells them stuff every day that is not true. And I'm sure I don't need to say what country that is, but it's really alarming. But they had it on a national TV show. I just thought I would mention since we're talking about gaslighting. Those kids wake up and go to bed every day, not really knowing what the score is.
And they don't get much of a chance to get out of that if they're being programmed from birth, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Denmark is one of those countries. It's one of those countries that talks about emotional intelligence and emotional awareness as part of the schooling system. So people are learning how to self-regulate and how to be aware of their emotions and how to stay present in them so that they're not leaving them if they get uncomfortable. And so they learn tools for regulating their nervous system in their schooling program.
Yeah.
Like if you contrast that to most countries and what the schooling program looks like, it's indoctrination in most countries, right?
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't, I mean, this is not doom and gloom because this is designed to crack the system. Because if you break, which you're going to have to do, if you're empathetically feeling how bad things are and how rough it is, and you crack, you're getting opened. The highway of consciousness is opening within you. So, I mean, even in the midst of, this is the beauty of consciousness, right? This is the beauty. It always auto-corrects. No matter how much insanity we place into this reality will always try to find homeostasis, balance, and it'll auto-correct. So our consciousness is going to use whatever's given in our reality to increase the potential for growth. So, I always say the other thing that's part of when I say to people, be comfortable as part of your growth process, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's the only way you're going to expand as a being, energetically, emotionally, psychologically, physically. It's all part of the deal. And listen, we live in an uncomfortable reality right now. If you feel it, if you're not desensitized and you're feeling it, it's uncomfortable. It's hard to turn on the news and not go, oh my God, like what else is going on in the world?
Right.
The other thing is that we were never biologically designed to be inputted with this much data. Like our biological system's not designed for that, to have the influx of information. We're never supposed to understand what's happening 12,000 miles away in another country that we didn't have access to, right? And our system is designed as a evolutionary process to notice the negative that's a protective mechanism that's part of our biology. We notice the negative more than we notice the positive because we're looking for stuff that's potential issues of protection. So we do that as a way to protect ourselves. So that's an evolutionary thing. So that's also being used. So that's that when there's rage and clickbait and fear, we're going to notice that more, which means it's even more important for us to focus on the things that are empowering, that feel good, that are conscious, that are connected, that are enlightening, that are playful, that are joyful, right? I mean, there's reasons why I choose certain shows that I'm watching. I want to watch shows that are based in creativity, Project Runway, Top Chef, The Great British Bake Off. People laugh at me, but those movies are engaging in creativity. They're engaging in the radiant child. They're activating those aspects that connect us deeper to self. I'm not interested in watching a psychological horror or a movie about a serial killer. I mean, because you know what? We're all drawn to that anyways biologically. So we have to be way more conscious about what we choose to put our energy on, music, and make our entertainment be educational, make it be conscious, make it be expansive, make it be opening, make it be heartfelt. And you have to search that out. That's not something that's presented overtly as much as the negative. I wish, news doesn't even focus on positive stuff very much anymore.
Correct.
I mean, how much news, when you turn on, what segment of the news, if you turn on regular news, do they talk about all the positive things that are happening in the world?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no such a thing.
So that's why we have to find it. You have to create, and then you design your algorithms in your social media to align to that as best as possible, even though they're going to input stuff in there as part of the process of getting your attention. But if you're going to put your attention on something, choose what it is. Don't let it be whatever comes up on your screen or whatever show is new on whatever platform you're watching. It's about being discerning and conscious and still staying available to what's happening, but not participating in the enragement of it. Because people are like, if I want to bring down the system, you're playing the game to a degree. You bring down the system by withdrawing your attention. How do workers pull away, create changes in their job situation? They strike. And what a strike is I am not putting my attention on working your program. I'm going to remove myself from the system. And when I remove myself from the system, and enough of us do it, then that highway becomes obsolete, and then change has to happen. As long as they have our attention, nothing will change.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
That's why spiritual community is a big deal too, because if you're engaging with a group of people who are living consciously and want to be involved in this growth process, then we're building a system of people who are saying no to the present reality, no to the conditioning, and you say no by saying I withdraw. There's a high percentage of people who want to live off the grid, away from social media. They want to kind of live self-regulated. They want to be empowered. They don't want to be part of it. If we keep pulling our attention away from the things that they want us to do, then eventually we become the masters of our own reality in terms of what we're creating. But
Right.
that takes a lot because it's addictive.
True. So there are 3 things that people need to do every day. One of them is to hydrate. Make sure that you stay hydrated. Drink half of your body weight in ounces in water. You need to get outside and you need to walk around in the sunlight. You need sunlight every day. You need water every day. And you need to have some movement. And that will get your brain started. And the other thing that you need to do is while you're out there walking, make sure that you breathe. Breathe deep, get the air inside and outside, and circulate all of that wonderful new energy that's coming in for you. And make sure that you take care of yourselves, because no one else is going to do it. And the continuation of continuing to feed ourselves all of the negativity every day on social media and on TV, it really just brings about the opportunity, as Markus was saying, for change, to make sure that you get to do what you need to do for yourselves and for your family. We're all in this together, and if we don't do something different, we're still going to get the same thing we've had, which is the definition of insanity. So that being said, Markus, I so appreciate you being here again today. I love to have you on our show because, let's face it, I can just sit back and let you talk, and I can get really educated on it. I never get tired of hearing your lectures. You always have so much to say, and I've learned so much from you. And so do you have anything going on that you want to tell the public about, or how to get to hold of yourselves and schedule something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm available on for remote sessions. You can find that through my website. And I'm starting a new platform, a new thing, and this has kind of been prompted by a lot of people. It's called the Healing Satsang, and it's going to be, when we get on and we do a group healing remotely, where we do energetic work. I do energetic work. Sometimes my wife will come on. We'll both work energetically on everybody, guided meditation. So, and then just the Relationship Academy, where all of the content from all the stuff that I've done for the last 12 years, 15 years is on that system, that program, where we can access information to kind of continue deepening in all these things about deepening into self, connecting to the earth, understanding how your system works, and unraveling your conditioning so that you can become an empowered being and make the choices that are expansive for you.
MarkusKasunich.com.
MarkusKasunich.com. It's always a pleasure to be here, Bobbi.
Thank you so much.
I know we had a lot of issues with our sound today, so it was rough, but I think we got through it.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you all later. Thanks for coming. Have a great day.